All right, diving right in today. The FA Cup, Brighton versus Nottingham Forest, quite the matchup.
Oh yeah, definitely a tense one from what I've seen. Your reports, BBC and The Guardian, paint a picture of a real nail-biter.
Absolutely. Ended in penalties, didn't it? But we want to get to the heart of this game. What were those key moments? Why does this result matter so much, especially for these two clubs? And honestly, what might we have missed in the initial coverage?
Exactly, we're going deep. You want the insights without having to sift through every single detail.
That's us, efficiency experts in football analysis, huh? But seriously, folks, let's unpack this. 0-0 after a full 120 minutes, nearly 30,000 at the MX Stadium to see it live.
Atmosphere must have been electric, especially going into those extra periods.
You'd think so, right?
Right.
But both BBC and The Guardian, they use words like drab, low-key, even abject to describe the game itself. Doesn't exactly scream edge-of-your-seat excitement.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? What was the tactical approach from both sides that led to such a stalemate?
It's strange, because Brighton, they're known for their attacking style. But BBC Sport points out they only had 2 shots on target in that entire 130 minutes of play.
Wow, that is telling. 2 shots. For a team like Brighton, they must have been really stifled.
And The Guardian backs this up, saying basically nothing much happened in either half or extra time until the very end. Sounds like a real grind.
Makes those key moments even more crucial, right? When there are so few chances, each one becomes magnified.
Absolutely. So let's talk about those moments. First one that jumps out, that penalty awarded to Forrest in the 64th minute, foul on Elliot Anderson, could have been a game changer.
VAR, eh? What a wild ride it can be.
Seriously, ref points to the spot, Forrest think they've got it, then they go to the monitor and boom, overturned. The reports mention some pretty strong protests from the Forest bench, understandably.
Oh, for sure. Such a swing of emotions, from thinking you have a penalty to suddenly it's gone. It's hard for players to adjust.
And then, right at the end of extra time, Brighton, they almost snatch it themselves, don't they?
João Pedro bundling it in from that Estupinan delivery. You could practically hear the Brighton fans celebrating already.
But alas, offside. The flag goes up, goal disallowed. The Guardian specifically mentions Estupinan looking clearly offside when the ball was played. So close to both sides, but nothing to show for it.
Talk about frustrating. 2 potential winning goals, both ruled out. The tension must have been palpable at that point.
And so to penalties we go. Nail-biting stuff. Forest win it 4-3 in the end. Let's break it down.
Lay it on me. I'm ready.
Brighton, João Pedro scores. B. Gruda slots his home too. But then Jack Hinchelwood saved by Matz Sels in the Forest goal. Diego Gomez, same story, saved again by Sels. Lewis Dunk scores Brighton's final one, but the damage was done.
So it all came down to Forrest's last penalty then?
Pretty much. Forrest, Anderson scores, no problem.
Yeah.
Then Neco Williams, he skies it over the bar, gives Brighton a glimmer of hope.
Nerves, I bet. That's the thing with penalties. It's as much mental as it is about skill.
Totally. Nikola Milenkovic scores for Forest, keeps them in front. And then it's Captain Ryan Yates to win it. And he buries it. Cool as you like.
Ice in his veins. What a moment for him and for Forrest.
And you can't talk about this shootout without mentioning Matz Sels, that Forest goalkeeper. Both reports sing his praises. Those 2 saves were absolutely crucial.
He's the hero, right? The guy who steps up in the biggest moment. Penalties are so often a lottery, but a keeper who can pull off saves like that changes the whole game.
For sure. Now let's hear from the men themselves. Brighton's manager, Fabian Herzler, didn't mince his words. Not resilient enough, not good enough, he said. Straight to the point.
Wow, that's a brutal self-assessment. But honesty is sometimes what's needed after a loss like that.
He did acknowledge Forest tactics, though, their deep block, the counter-attacking style. Said it's their game and that they've had success with it. Admits Brighton struggled to find answers, especially in that first half.
Interesting that he's so willing to credit the opposition. Some managers might deflect, but he seems to be taking it on the chin.
Yeah, and regarding the penalties, he basically said the Forest keeper made some great saves. No excuses, just facts.
Accountability, right there. On the other side, Nuno Espirito Santo, the Forest manager, understandable joy, called it a stressful moment. Couldn't stop praising Sels, of course.
And he made sure to highlight Ryan Yates scoring the winner, mentioning Yates has been at the club since he was young. Adds that extra bit of emotional weight, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The local lad coming good. It's a classic storyline for a reason.
Santo did say he felt Forest controlled Brighton in terms of their possession, that they created chances. Which is interesting, given the overall abject description of the game. I guess it's about what kind of control you're talking about, right?
That's a good point. Possession doesn't always equal dominance. Maybe Forest were just so well organized defensively that they limited Brighton's threat, even if they weren't exactly peppering the Brighton goal themselves.
Makes sense. Now, to the players. Nikola Milenkovic, the Forest defender, called the feeling incredible. He admitted Brighton were tough opponents, but emphasized their defensive strength as a team. The joy of reaching Wembley for the fans, he said, that's what it's all about. And he mentioned they practice penalties a lot. Clearly paid off.
Preparation is key, right? Especially in those high-pressure moments.
No doubt. And Matz Sels, the man of the hour, very humble, just happy to help the team reach Wembley, he said. Acknowledged the luck involved in shootouts, but immediately shifted focus to their next Premier League game. Got to stay grounded, even after a big win.
Typical goalkeeper mentality, focused, one game at a time.
Ryan Yates, Mr. Cool himself, admitted to some nerves before his penalty, but relief and joy afterwards, obviously. Gave credit to Sels for his saves, felt they deserved the win, and he too, looking forward to that Wembley day out for the fans. You can tell this means a lot to everyone at the club.
Yeah, you can really feel the contrasting emotions, can't you? The heartbreak for Brighton, the euphoria for Forest. That's what makes cup football so special.
Absolutely. Now, some expert takes on the game. Former Brighton striker Glenn Murray didn't hold back. He thought Forest were the better side on the day, plain and simple. Felt Brighton weren't at their best.
Coming from someone who knows Brighton so well, that's a pretty damning assessment. Maybe Forest just had their number tactically.
Wayne Rooney chimed in too, gave credit to Santo for his management, even though he'd apparently questioned some of his team selections earlier. And Rooney brought up an interesting point about the challenges of players coming back from international duty.
Yeah, that's a big issue, isn't it? All that travel, the fatigue, trying to get back into the rhythm of club football, it must take a toll.
And Theo Walcott and Gary Lineker, they were on that same wavelength, talking about the sheer amount of football being played, all the traveling. Lineker even suggesting football needs to address this for the players' sake and for the quality of the game we're seeing.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Balancing international football with the club schedule, player burnout is a real concern.
No easy answers there. Now, zoom out a bit. The historical context for Forest. Their first FA Cup semi-final in 34 years, since 1991.
Wow, that puts it into perspective. It's been a long wait for the fans.
Last time they won it was way back in 1959. This is huge for them. Brighton, on the other hand, never won the FA Cup. Another missed opportunity for them.
The pressure must be mounting for them to finally break that duck.
BBC Sport mentioned a crazy stat. Forest have won all 4 of their FA Cup penalty shootouts. 100% record. Talk about mental strength.
I wonder if there's something in the water over there. Maybe they've got a secret penalty guru working behind the scenes, huh?
Maybe. This was also the first ever FA Cup meeting between these two, although Forest have had the upper hand in League Cup ties before. And of course, we can't forget that 7-0 drubbing Forest gave Brighton in the league just last month. This was a chance for Brighton to get some revenge, and it didn't happen.
That must sting. To lose so heavily, then get knocked out of the cup by the same team. Tough pill to swallow.
So what's next? Forest, they're in the semi-final draw with Crystal Palace. That's happening Sunday. But they've also got a Premier League game on Tuesday. No time to rest.
Nope, back to the grind. Brighton, well, the disappointment is real, but they're still pushing for a Champions League spot. Big game against Aston Villa on Wednesday, and there's that potential injury to Jorginho Rudder to worry about.
Yeah, things can change quickly in football. So there you have it. Not the prettiest game, but a tense, hard-fought FA Cup battle. Forest, the penalty shootout kings march on. Sels the hero. Brighton got to regroup quickly, both physically and mentally. And for Forest, the historical significance, the emotional weight of this result, it all adds up to something truly special.
It really does, and it raises an interesting question, doesn't it? Is there something more to penalty shootouts than just luck? Forest's perfect record in the FA Cup, it's uncanny. Is there a psychological edge? A tactical approach that some teams have mastered? Maybe a deep dive into the history of penalty shootouts could shed some light on this fascinating aspect of the beautiful game.
Something to ponder, for sure. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, folks. Until next time.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.